welcome back to the Intel Extreme Masters live from the Oracle Arena in Oakland and to the Xfinity Analyst Desk as we are about to get into Game 2 of the semifinal and best of 3 between Flash Wolves and Longzhu. Flash Wolves took Game 1 eventually, and the Longzhu has had a change in their lineup. They are bringing in Crash, they are subbing out Chaser and Frosker, and you talked a lot about the pathing of Karsa and Karsa just being able to snowball that game and get ahead of Chaser. So what do you think this change will bring?
So I'm a fan of Chaser as well as Crash. I think that the primary difference between them is Crash is a little bit inconsistent. He either looks, to be frank, godly or pretty terrible. But the big thing is that he really likes contesting buffs, like blue, red, which it's a common thing for junglers, but Crash will almost do it to an extent where he'll put himself in a hole because he likes being productive, because he likes going forward.
He contests buffs to the degree that TSM in the LCS would contest buffs, but it's a one-man operation, which is so impressive.
Yeah, and how will that snowball if that goes better on the rest of the game?
As long as he has frozen up, especially from Expression, as long as he has follow-up from Frozen, there we go, from Expression or Frozen, because the thing is he really likes to start with contesting the blue buff and playing between the top side of the map, so bouncing between Expression, bouncing between Frozen. It's not too often that he'll pop down to Pure and Fury. Actually, a lot of times Pure will actually be unlocked from the lane and kind of roam up to assist with that, but it's really dependent on the matchup if Fury can be left alone and be self-sufficient without his support.
Champion pick-wise, are we expecting to see something else coming out in terms of champion pool? For Crash, the Elise, we were not terribly impressed by Chaser in the last game. Not that much to pick, but also just a bit of misplayed. What would you like to see?
Well, Crash has a pretty mean Nidalee. I think that this pick has to be banned by the Flash Wolves. We saw how effective Karsa could be. If a team has that and has the ability to close out a game, although I really feel like we're hitting on that one so much because these teams really struggle with it, but the Nidalee for Crash in particular, I think he had a game in the LCK when Nidalee was really popular where he got about 100 CS lead with 3 levels over the opponent and just completely carries the game. So I think that he's very capable in these high-pressure junglers that can really put a team on his back. And if Nidalee's out, he can surely do it on Lee Sin as well.
And you know, Papa Smithy said it earlier on the desk, if you take a look at just the raw stats between these two junglers and what they've actually offered, there is a much higher win rate with Crash, though Longzhu, even though as a team collectively they haven't found a ton of success, what success they have found has really been with him on that roster as opposed to Chaser. So I definitely see this as more of an immediate upgrade, especially because Crash, you know, outside this tournament was kind of the most recent jungler.
Yeah, and the Longzhu will be finding themselves on the blue side for this pick and ban phase. Also interesting from the Flash Wolves because they kind of had some of the Flash Wolves picks that we hadn't seen. We hadn't seen the Gnar before they pulled it out. The Varus is not something we see other teams playing, so they have a bit of freedom to play around with that as we see the Poppy coming out as the first ban on the blue side from Longzhu, followed up by Syndra, very predictable of course by Flash Wolves on the red side.
And kind of quickly, yeah, as long as we're complimenting players, I mean, we've talked a lot about Karsa versus Crash, but that Gnar coming out, MMD really stepping up. You know, the fact that they
running through that base, hitting that Nexus, that was great.
The fact that they brought the sub again to echo Papa Smithy, that good thing that they kept MMD in there because he was clutch for them.
And it just makes sense when you're dealing with 2 rookies in an international stage. I mean, Crash also has not had international experience, and he might choke right now. We don't really know what we can expect of such a bipolar player. I do think that he will show up and perform to the level that we have seen him do in the LCK when he plays well, but it's still another X factor, which really seems to be the way to explain Longzhu.
Interestingly here, the Rise and Olaf bans coming out of Longzhu on blue side.
I like the fact that you used the phrase X factor, because I feel like that's kind of Longzhu collectively as a team. You know, they have those days where they take down SKT in a best of series and then, you know, are the 8th place LCK team.
Yeah, and then they try Leona support.
And then Karma is the final ban coming out of Flash Wolves. We'll see what Longzhu wants to go for in terms of their first pick. And we mentioned Nidalee, and that seems to be the direction they want to go in, and locked it in.
This is going to be really deadly, and now Karsa is going to have his work cut out for him. There's a lot of matchups that Nidalee can be, that you can play into the Nidalee. You have Lee Sin, you have the Elise. Those are the most likely ones now that Olaf is out. And it's all going to be about the skill matchup, how you can utilize it. Because
knowing
Lee Sin,
his history,
if played effectively, Lee Sin can have a big advantage onto this. Because Nidalee doesn't ramp up early on. She needs that first back. Once you start getting your jungle item, the Runic Echo is completed, she's going to be able to just power farm and get levels much faster than anybody else.
I also hope that they do commit on this Ashe pick. You know, not that I'm not a big fan of the Varus AD carry, but I also think that not only is Ashe more of a traditional pick and she's very strong on 6.21, but she kind of shores up a lot of the problems that Flash Wolves have late game and being like very decisive.
Pulling the trigger.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of Ashe, not even because of the engage, but because of the hawk shot. That ability is so incredibly powerful at all stages of the game. Not only can you scout the entirety of the map, you can see who's base, any lane assignments, anybody that goes missing. You can just, even if it doesn't hit anybody, the fact that you can tell if what camps have been taken allows you to deduce the pathing that Nidalee has. And with those two picks in combination, if they're on point together, they should know what Crash is doing at all times.
Definitely, and Karsa, of course, very well versed in playing Lee Sin as well, as we see Longzhu contemplating their possible bottom lane Jhin, and then Alistar, something we haven't seen yet here as a pick.
So the thing about Alistar is, so if you traditionally have, either shoving or trading lanes, Alistar kind of negates any lane. You automatically lose it because if you just pick a range support and then you're just going to shove him and he's going to get poked down. He has to sit there, kind of heal himself up. As I commit to the Alistar pick, they're like, nah, Braum.
Yeah, so that's why we're never supposed to talk about hovers, but hey, we got baited.
The Braum one, though, that one makes so much sense. Braum and Nidalee together is probably the strongest 2v2 that you can have in terms of support and
have to bring that
jungle,
CC for her.
because she has that ability to switch to range for him. She can close the gap very quickly, and just having that CC, as you mentioned, for the Nidalee, that allows her to really get in place and hit those spears when it really counts. So I'm expecting not only a lot of ganks in the bottom side from Longzhu, but a lot of pressure and invades through that side, because it's quite difficult to contest those two.
And even though the fact that the Braum has been secured, that they're now looking at the Tahm Kench, we would assume would go into the support position. That's what he's been played for the majority of the IEM Oakland, if not all of the IEM Oakland tournament. Obviously, kind of a soft answer to Ashe. The arrow connects with someone. Tahm Kench can just gobble them up, reposition them.
Well, they are with Ashe paired together, and even though it is a good answer, it is a great pairing as well. Ashe and Tahm Kench are just similar to Jhin, where you can just ult and go towards mid lane. Yeah, you go towards mid lane again, and then you just shoot that arrow. And it's so obnoxious for the mid laners to deal with this. And if they're actually able to utilize the advantages that Maple got in the first game with the bottom lane of the two globals, then that means that they can really get that first tower in the mid lane, and that is just the biggest first brick that you can get.
On top of that, we also see the Echo picked away and have that secured for the Flash Wolves, as well as the bottom lane now secured, and to see what Longzhu will want to pick up after their last picks to round out the compositions. What would you guys like to see in the mid lane?
Orianna, Victor, Cassiopeia.
Yeah,
All right.
The same picks that we've seen time and time again. I mean, I don't think that these teams will risk anything and go with a Cassidy. And it's probably, like you mentioned, Orianna, Victor. There really is no need for anything else, but the Aurelia pick would certainly be exciting.
Wow. They do switch it up, which is good.
Watch right here. Orianna or Cassiopeia.
Yeah, that was not a very exciting prediction, I know. But the Aurelia, though, what do you guys make of that up against the Echo in the top lane?
I mean, this fits Expression's MO pretty much to a T. He's a very mechanically intensive player. I mean, there's scenarios where he's 1v3 and he manages to kill all the people and he looks great. And there's scenarios where he dies by himself because he made a mechanical error. He took a hit from a tower.
Forgot about the Aurelion Sol.
Yeah, I reckon with the Aurelia and Nidalee, that's such a deadly combination when you're dealing with Echo. He's just going to be calling Crash nonstop. Come top, free kills. If you go ahead and you get that stun off onto anybody, again, the guaranteed stun. And it's just making sure that your Nidalee composition makes sense. You don't want to be having a Nidalee with no CC.
Which also makes the Aurelion Sol so much more important if they decide to pull the trigger on it, because that means that Maple needs to pay attention towards the top side on that, unlock himself, and start using that roam potential to cover his Echoes back.
Exactly. That's such a good pick to answer these split pushes. The Aurelion Sol helps everybody out that is going to be in danger in the side. And the crowd loving the Sol.
And when I asked about mid lane picks, we were like, oh, whatever, Cassio or Victor or something. No, he comes out with the Aurelion Sol. It was left open and slipped through the cracks.
The spice of life.
Yep.
He's quite...
Look, Shocks, it's a blue dragon versus the blue dragons.
Fantastic, yeah. In any case, very interesting picks here coming out of both teams, switching it up with the Aurelion in the top lane from Longzhu, and then the Aurelion Sol making it through for Maple as well. And we know how proficient he is, so I'm very excited to see how this plays out. The casters, take it away and run us through this one.
All right, thank you very much, Shocks. Coming back in now for game 2. Flash Wolves up 1-0 over Longzhu. We're going to try to bounce back, find a win, and then maybe close out this semi-final. See if they're able to do that when we load in. But first, let's just talk a little bit about the picks as well, because we have Aurelion Sol coming out from Maple. We know that he has a very deep champion pool, played 6 uniques at Worlds, 12 uniques during the summer split, and now going back to the Aurelion Sol.
There's a lot of excitement and just out of the game so far. So we've got Crash, and one thing I want to mention just before we get to the picks, of course, Crash, known for his explosive play.
Yeah.
His tendencies are actually very different to Chaser's. Chaser actually evolved into a ganking jungler towards the tail end of 2015 into 2016. Not the case with Crash. Crash is actually known for having big CS difference at 10 as a jungler, which means that basically he farms more camps in the enemy jungle. He focuses on being the battle ward, much like Peanut was for the Rockstars, especially in spring season. He's more of a pressure jungler, so he's not going to be impacting lanes, at least in his previous tendencies, has been more about trying to control the enemy jungler, get a farm lead, be team fight ready with his extra CS, compared to someone like Chaser, who was more of that ganking jungler.
Which I'm so happy to see, too, with this Nidalee pick being locked in, because if you want a power farm, this is the champion to do it on. And if you can get a sizable CS lead, if you can get an item advantage, it's so easy to take control of early skirmishes and early fights, and it's going to be about early skirmishes. There's a Lee Sin, an Aurelion Sol, an Ashe, a Tahm Kench. Fights can start anywhere and everywhere.
But it's Karsa's Lee Sin, and that's the thing that you have to be worried about if you're Crash, because this is one of Karsa's best champions. The Nidalee definitely didn't perform on that one. It's kind of surprising. So if he has a similar game, you know, if he's making the same mistakes, the missed decisions that he did in game 1, then Karsa will still have a bad time. But mechanically on this champion, he is superb.
And then we can roll on to the picks. Aurelia, seeing it here. We saw how Expression did without having a lane pressure advantage. It was fine. It wasn't offensive. It wasn't fantastic. It wasn't terrible. This is a very good matchup for Aurelia. It's actually echoes, which is an ironic thing to say, but it reminds me of Fiora versus Echo, which was seen as a lane counter pick in the past. If you max hit 10 style, go in with your W, you do win trades against Echo, so he will have a 1v1 pressure advantage unless he falls considerably behind in CS over the Echo. And then the Aurelion Sol, the counterpick on the other side, has been seen as one of these champions that can deal with the Victor in lane. Since we last saw Aurelion Sol has seen some nerfs, so the trades aren't quite as oppressive, especially early. But it's interesting to see, because the global pressure here from the Tahm Kench, from the Ashe arrow, from Aurelion Sol's mobility, and just the teleport Echo, there's a lot to think about for the Longzhu in the early game.
Yep.
And I think overall, this top lane, as you mentioned, is just super interesting, because with the max hit and style, even when Echo will take something, or take the keystone that allows him to get more battle, fervor of battle, sorry, I blanked on it for a moment there, normally against a weaker matchup, he can just stick on top of you after the Z-Drive Resonance procs, but now both top laners who normally can set up for these quick kind of burst trade patterns with their abilities can rely much more heavily on auto attacks, and that definitely comes out Aurelia favored, especially if she opts for the fervor as well.
There just aren't many champions that win an auto attack war against Echo, because the moment you go below 50% HP, the missing health damage comes in and you lose the trade. Fiora and the champion we see here, the Aurelia, are the two picks that can kind of go toe-to-toe, so at least based on the theory, based on other games, this should be really good for Expression.
Well, MMD taking a little bit of early control here, but of course Aurelia level 1, not a very much a powerhouse, whereas Echo has the perks of having a very impactful passive in the early game, whereas the Ionian Fervor, yeah, it's pretty solid, but it's not more damage into your early
And
hit.
just on a simple level 1, you've got ranged wave clear in terms of the Q from Echo, whereas it's level 6 when Aurelia gets any sort of AoE ability. So early push is going to be fine there from MD. It's the all-in trades from Aurelia where she really shines around level 4, level 5.
Yeah, at that point, it's going to be pretty scary in the trades. We'll see what the Flash Wolves can do, what MMD specifically can do to try to get himself ahead, because Expression did have pretty solid performance on that Poppy in game 1, despite the loss coming in. At the end, you can see now Expression going to be dashing around, is at least able to get those reliable last hits and then get back to safety rather quickly. So this is going to be decent for him. He's fallen behind very slightly, but I'm expecting that this CS discrepancy is not going to increase in MMD's favor.
To me, it's Maple Castle that have to do the work here. We saw a lot of Aurelion Sol plus strong ganking or pressure jungler duos do well at Worlds. And that's the same case here with Aurelion Sol and Lee Sin. Because I look at the draft from Longzhu, and specifically from Flash Wolves, they could have taken Ashe Braum in the first rotation, had a champion that denies some of the poke from Nidalee, denies a poke comp, but also stops the Braum draft from Longzhu that stops the Ashe arrow from being the same potent initiation tool that we know it to be. So they kind of gambled in some ways, and Longzhu have pressure laners, a pressure jungler. Okay, they lost game 1. They have to shake off their performance there, but Longzhu do have the tools to succeed in game 2.
Of course, we did see what looks like the blue buff being attributed over to the Aurelion Sol, making that laning phase even easier. Of course, the champion notorious for just being able to force out lanes, but I've been keeping my eyes on Crash this entire time, and I like his early pathing here. Goes for the full clear, then returns to topside for the Scuttle Crab, invades for early vision, steals the Krugs away, and honestly, one step ahead of Karsa in terms of early farming here, and the question is going to be, can Karsa, now that he's on the top side, get this gank off? It shouldn't be possible. They know Karsa's on the top side. Aurelia should play safe, but if Expression gets greedy here, there's definitely an opportunity.
But MMD needs to basically line up the parallel convergence. He's going to throw down Expression, dashing back. Can they get the stun? It's not going to happen in time. Karsa will land. The Sonic Wave goes in for the Resonating Strike, but all in all, they're just going to get a little bit of damage in onto that Aurelia, which he's basically going to regenerate off of his Corrupting Potion and his W anyway.
And the missing piece of the puzzle, though, Sifa, we have to remember, is that we expect the farm advantage for the Nidalee. It's just that Karsa got the farm advantage and got the successful ganks, whereas Chaser in the previous game, bit of happy feeding, didn't get the ganks off, wasn't able to match farm as expected, and now we look for Maple Karsa, and they're getting started early.
Oh,
yes, they are. Parallel Convergence is down. Not going to get the stun, but they will get the shield. Stun from the Aurelion Sol, though. That's a bit more reliable. They'll find it. It looks like they will find a first blood flashing in, actually, but Maple, he's just going to turn, gets that auto attack, and execution onto Karsa didn't make it out in time. Does go down, but first blood, all in all, secured by the Flash Wolves.
And just the dream there, getting the execution as well. Papa Smith, you mentioned earlier about the AoE comes out at level 6. That had been level 6, one blade would have guaranteed that kill, but because Aurelia had to consider each and every auto attack moving there, only picking a single target at the time, Expression, a little too much faith in his opponents to execute perfectly, did not anticipate Lee Sin going down, and Karsa, I mean, most of the time it's a joke, but he does get the fast back here and is now set to clear up the jungle even faster.
And they went with the Aurelion Sol Lee Sin before even level 6 is gotten by the Lee Sin. So they went for the very early roam, pulled it off, grow an advantage. Aurelia's flash is down, Aurelia's teleport is down. A lot of advantages stacking up for the Flash Wolves.
Yeah, exactly what you want as well, because the top lane with two strong potential split pushers is such a snowbally matchup, both hungry for that early Triforce, and Crash maybe overstaying his welcome here, but Expression there to back him up.
MMD gets a good little bit of damage down, but Karsa wasn't arriving in time to actually threaten a kill onto Crash, so he's able to go ahead and back off, doesn't have to worry about blowing the flash. Maple, though, yeah, he's going to take a cruise down to this bottom lane. Not sure if Pure and Fury know. There we go. Drops a ward, immediate teleport coming out onto this one from MMD. They're going to go for the dive yet again. Voice of Light thrown out. Fury taking a hell of a lot of damage. He's, of course, going to be the focus, and he will go down. Double red, finding the kill. Sonic Wave lands onto Pure. Parallel Convergence not going to find the stun. Do they want to keep pursuing underneath the tower? Looks like they are. Flash forward by MMD. Maple taking the tower. They'll make it out. And now Frozen, he's on the rope down, but now he's caught in the middle of all of the Flash Wolves. Devour goes out onto Karsa, keeping him alive. Maple still just beating the hell out of him with the stars. Gonna find the kill. That's another one on the board. Maple 3-0-1 already on the Aurelion Sol.
Got these roams started so early, they're not gonna quite get Crash, but on the front foot, the Flash Wolves look so potent in the early game, and I love the time. We saw the same sort of thing from Expression in game 1. Yesterday as well, when you see your opponent have to teleport back to lane like Aurelia did, that frees the map to go for those roams and putting down the ward, teleporting on top of it, massive numbers discrepancy, then Frozen late on the roam to try and counter. Everything went right for Flash Wolves, and everything's starting to fall apart for Longzhu.
Just a beautiful execution overall, approaching a 2K gold lead, only 7 minutes into the game, and the top lane, they have lost out on an immense amount of CS, but the rest of the map is prosperous, and the gold only slightly in favor of the Aurelia at this stage, but the Aurelion Sol, the big pick here. Maple for so long has been the hard carry of this team, where Karsa has been his enabler, but now that he can roam himself, now that Maple and Karsa can move together, not just in the mid game, but in the early game as well, they're looking pretty unstoppable.
Yeah, Maple definitely feeling comfortable on this champion. Flashed it before in game 1, didn't lock it in, but goes with it this time around, and it's been paying off quite well. 1.3 thousand in the lead for Flash Wolves. First turret has not come out yet, but it's pretty much a matter of time with the amount of pressure the Flash Wolves are applying on the map.
It's a bit surreal to me that we've seen so little of the Aurelion Sol. I knew everyone was practicing it, was ready for Worlds, saw a lot of bans, saw some picks, but wasn't necessarily a staple pick like I expected, and even at this tournament, it's also been very underrepresented.
Well, Bjergsen's out of the tournament now, so we can have Aurelion Sol back. It's great.
Oh, spicy there, Achilles.
Maple will be happy about that, so we'll see if they can close it out. We saw Flash Wolves start off decently in game 1, and it went on a pretty rocky path there. So we'll see if they can close this one out a little bit smoother.
And of
or
course,
if Longzhu can inch back in.
Aurelion Sol did see some minor adjustments from the patches after Worlds, because during the World stage, of course, we got to witness how powerful he was, and maybe a lot of people thought that his damage wouldn't be relevant, that the roam potential wouldn't be relevant,
Maple.
but it is!
Yeah, there we go. Big stun comes in. Resonating Strike is there. Karsa picking up his first kill of the game. Another assist from Maple. And Flash Wolves just keep on the pressure.
And when you can gank for the Aurelion Sol, when you can gank for the mid laner with his ability to roam, those problems spill over. They already have this game, has a successful gank top, does Maple, successful gank bot. Now also getting advantages. He's turning down bottom as well.
What was that about a gank bot? Yeah, Maple cruising in, doesn't get the stun, pure block in that one with the Unbreakable. Does get the root from the Deadly Flourish down on the Maple. Is going to open up with the current call. Sword Art likely going to eat all of these shots. Still has that great health. That's going to be the Glacial Fissure. Karsa now joining the team. Throw that out, stopping them from coming back in. Spear will connect onto the Aurelion Sol, but not going to get a whole lot done. Crash out of mana as well. So they're going to go ahead and have to back off. And it looks like the Flash Wolves, they'll just get a little bit of pressure, but otherwise they're not going to be able to get any more kills.
This is preying upon a jungle like Crash on this Nidalee, a power farmer by trade, a power farmer in history, by just making aggressive moves around the map that you're not expecting Crash to be in position to counter gank. That's not his style. And because they run this game specifically through that dynamic duo, Maple and Karsa, even though Expression's got a CS lead, even though he's winning trades, that looks like it's going to be very much a small point in the overall texture of this game.
Pretty much all the pressure now is on Expression, though, because as you said, he has the CS lead. He's doing well in these trades. He is the sole point of pressure in favor of Longzhu, but I don't think they have the tools left to play around him. Crash consistently forced to respond to the rest of the pressure on the map, and he's still power farming reasonably well, but it's just not what the team needs at this particular moment. You can see Karsa has the mobility boots. This man roaming the map, looking to gank, looking to get as much as he possibly can, whereas Crash has to just be content continuing to farm up.
Yeah, and I mean, he's about 20 CS ahead of Karsa at the moment, but it's only a difference of 100 gold because of that kill, because of those 3 assists that he's been able to get on that Lee Sin. So even having that massive CS discrepancy, it's not gaining Crash much of an advantage.
I mean, it's worth knowing that right now he hasn't actually shopped since much earlier, so he hasn't spent any of the gold that he has. So right now it's just going to be the hit end style base damage from the true damage that's going to happen in trades. He's going for an all-in,
yeah,
though.
MMD. In a pretty bad spot. Crash is here as well. He gets the shield, but this is not looking good. Doesn't have the ultimate. Crash just going to be able to hop right in there. Takes a couple turret shots, but he's going to make it out alive.
And the story here will be, when he goes back, probably picks up a Sheen and a Phage, should continue to win those trades pretty strongly. Gus is going to come up, but only going to be able to pick up some CS. Things are going to get worse for MMD before they get better, and he's probably going to have to go a very tanky route, and you can see Sunfire first. No Trinity Force Echo, at least till later in the game.
Yeah, no options to trade in that lane. Understands that he is now behind, and that is not going to change in the near future. This is not where Flash Wolves want to give their attention.
Third almost going down. That's going to be the Ash Arrow coming out. Fury going to be the focus. Voice of Light comes out. Double Red picks up the kill. Now the tower dead. Pure trying to push back in. The Victor coming through. Frozen going to try to turn this one all around. They're going to pop the top catch. And now MMD getting locked up. Stunned so much that he can't even get out. And he is going to go down 2 kills on the board for Longzhu as Expression takes one of them. That's going to make MMD's time in the top lane even tougher. But Karsa, he's going to be looking for a bit of damage onto that turret. Probably can finish this one off. So it'll be 2 turrets for Flash Wolves, but we'll see how Longzhu can retaliate.
You can see it's always a bit of a trap to enter lane as a jungler. Ends up being caught on the complete other side of the map with no hope of mobility. Was even numbers, but Flash Wolves give up 2 kills. And this Aurelia continues to grow. Massive CS lead. There are those Phage and Sheen towards the Trinity Force. Echo's not going to have the same kill pressure in the backline, not having the freedom to go for a Trinity Force. The objective will be taken down, but who is going to match Expression in the side lanes? Right now, it seems it's going to have to be pulling mid lane, pulling the jungler pretty exclusively. They have a bit of freedom to do that given how well the map is going otherwise, but it's on kind of a timer. Once the Trinity Force comes in, you worry for the opponents of Aurelia.
Yeah.
Of course, as we see this play unfold, you can see pretty clean the initial dive to start out from Flash Wolves, but they overcommit here, and you just get a beautiful, beautiful gravity field to come in from Frozen. The Victor AoE damage is so solid, and of course, once that initial burst goes through, it's so easy for Expression and Crass to just clean up the back of that fight. But at the end of the day, still only a 2-for-1 trade. Lee Sin does break the tower on the top side, so Flash Wolves have that just about 3K gold lead, are still very much in control, but it's not about the gold lead right now. It's about the Aurelia, as you said, Papa Smithy, because at no point in this game are they going to have a reliable answer to that Aurelia.
Yeah, the only other hope they have, though, is just keep playing around Aurelia. Her teleport's down right now. She's anchored to the top lane, trying to take this turret and just make advantages elsewhere. They still do have a massive dragon in the mid lane, being able to roam between lanes. So just trying to play around the Aurelia, but looks like Longzhu going to double down on Aurelia.
Yeah, they're just going to keep giving him the same treatment. Meanwhile, in bot, Frozen roaming down, getting caught out. Maple puts another kill on the board. 4-0-3 now, and Expression. Something happened up in this top lane. This doesn't look quite right. MMD going into the face dive, just going to snap back so he can get more in range of this Aurelia. Throws out the Time Winder. There it is. Should be the kill coming through. Just needs one more hit. Can he get it? The E should be off cooldown.
In a second. He's going to grab it.
No, but he rolls the wrong way. MMD playing ring around the rosy. The Tom Kench coming up. Sword Art says, all right, you know what? I'll help you finish this off. Doesn't matter. Can't get the tag. Kill still goes over to MMD, but this is a bit of a weird scenario going on right there.
Pass judgment on that situation without a bit more information, but as far as I could tell, 2v1 MMD danced around a turret long enough to turn it around on Aurelia. We'll get confirmation, hopefully from a replay in the future, but that's a bad sign, given they lost Victor in the bot lane.
Well, and as we panned away, of course, it looked like the parallel convergence was going to connect, and we'll double check that soon. But in the meantime, Karsa going to take a Mountain Drake. That all works out in favor of Flash Wolves. I liked the fancy footwork from the Aurelia, but it's just not enough.
You just have to look. Killed on the Victor, kill on the Aurelia, Mountain Drake as well. Stacking objectives. We're going to see the replay. How did this go so poorly? Expression starts with tanking. And it just, the stun completely outdoes them. Crash can do nothing, just caught on the other side. Can't afford to tank either. Yakety Sax playing around here.
Yeah, if only there was some sort of indicator to know where he would stun you. I mean, rough break for Expression, right? Right on the edge of the circle, couldn't make it out in the end. Sword Art comes in just to add insult to injury. Burns Flash.
Doesn't get kill involvement either.
Honestly, if Expression had gotten the execution out after that, after MMD rolled the wrong way,
that would have been a highlight clip.
That would have been so funny to me. But now in the mid lanes, Sword Art just watched his roam to the top side, didn't get any involvement. Yeah, he's going to get blown up. Fury takes him out. They chain together the CC, and that's one dead Catfish. Can't get on the double red. They get a little bit of damage in. The heal used from him, but the kill going to evade them for a little bit. But now Longzhu grouping up in mid might be looking to make a push onto this tier 1 turret.
And it's always risky to commit a lot of resources onto a Tom Kench because of that gray health, but they chained the CC well, denied any opportunity to get that second health bar, made for an easy pick, and Sword Art, while not the most crucial member to grab, does neutralize a lot of the pressure that Flash Wolves are putting down. However, this Rift Herald, I said there's nothing that can stop the Aurelia, but this would be a big piece of help for
It's
MMD.
a neutralizer, right? It's another extra tool to try and stop Expression from running away from the lane. And it seems like the enemy outer turret did a pretty good job there as well, but compounding on that will be the Rift Herald that actually Lee Sin picked up.
Really? Interesting, of
At
course.
least the kill. I'm not 100% sure on the buff, but I believe...
MMD grabbed it.
Okay.
He juked out of the way of the Nidalee Spear and then picked it up. Maple coming back down to the bottom lane. Looking for Expression. I actually don't know how this duel will go for him.
Well, there's a Catfish there too.
Yeah, not able to get the...
And a Robo Ash, so...
The interrupt, and Sword Art and Double Red arrived, so... Guess he would have been all right.
Just trying to take stock of what's happened this game. CS advantages on Aurelia, like we mentioned. Nidalee's been power farming. We said the Crash is a power farmer. That has proven true. Still has 100% kill participation, so at least where he has been, has caused things to happen.
And for the most part, very clean play coming from the Flash Wolves. Good use of their global advantage, good use of the Aurelion Sol, especially in the early game. Karsa just content to follow Maple for a lot of these early plays. Oh, yes. The groan from the crowd. We'll figure out what this is. We'll get back underway. But in the meantime, I mean, it's been a very clean early game for the most part from Flash Wolves, but there have been a few critical errors, a few moments where they have overcommitted, and that is concerning moving forward. But it's a similar story to when we saw Unicorns of Love get ahead earlier in the day. They have such a massive lead that they can't afford to make these small mistakes.
I mean, but Longzhu is kind of matching them in those mistakes, so Flash Wolves have been hovering ahead because of that. But if Longzhu can collect themselves and start making more proactive plays, not doing what Expression did around the top lane turret and completely botch a dive, then they really could get back into this game. But for right now, it's a pretty comfortable spot for the Flash Wolves. 3,500 gold up, 3 turrets to 0. They now have that Mountain Drake. There's an Infernal on the way in several minutes, and they have twice the amount of kills as Longzhu. So they're in a pretty good spot. It's just whether or not they can hold on to it. They won by the skin of their teeth in game 1. I want to see them close out a bit cleaner if it comes to them winning in the second game.
Yeah, and it's just so rough for Longzhu as well, because there's a lot of comps you can get behind against. This is not one of them. Ash Aurelion Sol, especially once Aurelion Sol gets that Rylai's, I mean, if they are ever on top of you, which is pretty easy when you have a Tahm Kench and Aurelion Sol, you're never getting away. There's an Echo, just to add insult to injury. When this team gets a lead, if they see you, you die. There's nothing you can do to escape, no matter how many flashes you have. If Flash Wolves want to kill you, they have the tools to do it. So much mobility, so much CC, so much sustained, slow, and sticking power. So this team is pretty much my solo queue nightmare, if I'm being completely honest. I never, ever want to see this comp block.
And the window in which Aurelia can just deal with any opposition in the top lane is starting to close, just because right now, okay, she's in the top lane, she's going to keep pushing. She might even take the top outer turret. That'll be the first outer turret, or any first turret of any kind, that Longzhu picked up this game. Flash Wolves have 3. As we see this pause, they're actually heading towards the mid lane to take the mid outer to complete the 3 outers from going down. And just playing around an Aurelia or playing around a top laner with an advantage is something we've seen in competitive play for the longest time. A champion like Nasus, for example, even if he gets a lead, so often you can just play in every other lane, prey upon the tendencies of a strong split pusher, and just make the advantages in other lanes. So for now, the Aurelia, the one real win condition for Longzhu, isn't counting for much. And if they don't find a way to slow down this game, they're in trouble.
All right, well, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the plays that have happened so far throughout this game in the 17.5 minutes that we've been in. We'll take a look at Maple, who has been pretty much just compiling a highlight reel for his Aurelion Sol play.
I mean, Frozen's played 4 games. It's the 4th game on Victor. It wasn't a staple pick like it was for Crown and LCK. He actually showed other champions. Karma was his most played, the Malzahar as well, but it's stuck with the Victor just for safety, the ability to draft it early, was played around in this game. Maple has had just a complete field day roaming between lanes. Successful gank top, successful gank bot, and then crucially, even got a successful gank a couple of times for him in the mid lane. So Maple's really been the difference, and Karsa has been right next to him as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been looking like solid play. You just see a few mistakes there coming in for Flash Wolves. And when you look at that highlight reel, we have like 1 positive, maybe 2 positive for the Flash Wolves and 2 positive for Longzhu. So just looking at those clips, you may think it's an even game because of the kills that are being traded back and forth. But you start to look at the scoreboard, and more importantly, you start to look at all of the outer towers being knocked down. And it's just a brutal spot, honestly, for Longzhu to be in. They've lost pressure. They should soon lose control of their jungle. And there's a lot of teams where you go, I see one guy on the bottom side. We can invade as 5. Like, not when you're this far behind, unfortunately. It's very easy for the team with the amount of burst damage, with the amount of execution potential between an Echo and a Lee Sin to just start taking members out at any moment. So they have to be really scared. Once again, mobility, very terrifying to play against when you're behind.
Yeah.
And I wonder about Crash on a different team. I think about Crash a lot just because he has those highlight plays. I remember him getting a triple kill, dying an enemy red buff. He does a lot of questionable things and does some outstanding things. And it reminds me a lot of Peanut in 2015 on Najin, on a team that didn't support him. Didn't really make much happen. Farmed a bit, just didn't really contribute overall to games. On Longzhu, he has this farming style, he has this pressure style, but so often one of his 2 lanes, or at least one of his 2 solo lanes, will fall behind, force his hand, and even though he's picked up farm, it's not enough to actually take things over the line and pick up wins. So Crash, so far this game, it's been a bit of a non-factor, especially in against his opposite number. We're not talking about Crash and Frozen. This has been purely the Maple Karsa show.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, too, because I really like the way that Crash played after the early game. Pairing up top with Expression, those are 2 champions who are very hard to get away from. They knew that they could snowball the top side of the map. The second Aurelia gets a stun, it's easy to get the spear follow-up. You snowball that lane. Nidalee's set up to control top side completely, and they get 1 successful kill off. But meanwhile, the rest of the map is dying constantly. And so even in this instance where they have a lead topside, they now attempt to rinse and repeat, and they fumble the execution. And this was the one glimmer of hope, is that they could continue to snowball topside, but Expression, despite his impressive ability to avoid an Echo chasing him down, has now kind of, at least to a certain degree, thrown that option away. When you are the last hope for your team, not that you ever should be in that position to begin with, you cannot afford to make mistakes. And unfortunately for Expression and Crash, they both overstepped a little bit on that topside play.
Yeah, it was good up until that point. It was like pretty decent, and they were like, okay, you know, just keep rocking MMD, just keep him down, and then Expression happened, and it all went downhill from there. But looks like we are back into game, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get this back underway. We'll see if Flash Wolves can maintain this lead, now applying some pressure in the mid lane, whittling down that turret pretty low, but not going to be able to kill it quite yet.
Yeah, Victor able to roam from bot to mid just in time to be able to stop there from being a mid-outer. That's really their own last bastion of hope, is having that mid-outer turret still up for Longzhu.
Of course, looking now at the top side, too, with the Sunfire Cape completed in addition to that Rift Herald buff. Aurelion having a lot harder time on the top side of the map, despite that massive lead in her favor, at least in terms of CS. So pretty brutal to watch. Really was hoping for that to remain relevant, at least for a little while longer, even if it wasn't the wide open opportunity that Longzhu were initially hoping for. I like the ward, though, that Flash Wolves have now placed in the mid lane. They can be sure when people are there to try to hold on to the tower, and it gives them a lot more freedom. You can see Ashe and Tahm Kench now safe to move down because they've seen that Jhin is already occupied.
Not much defensive vision here, so sniffing around, looking for further kills onto Maple, but for now, none come forward.
No, they're just going to keep double red in that mid lane because he can, farm more optimally. Already has a massive CS lead, 172 to 132. So being 40 up over this Jhin, it's looking pretty good so far for the rookie.
It's good. It's such a rough spot to be in, right? Like right now, all the pressure is neutralized, and you kind of forget how far ahead Flash Wolves are. But all it takes is for Maple to find a single opportunity here for any kind of gank or any kind of action to just once again create an even bigger lead. And right now, I think his attention may be in the mid lane. Fury and Pure looking pretty confident as they step forward, but Brahm's not going to be able to block at all. Here comes Maple.
Oh, right as he gets into the lane.
Next time on Flash Wolves versus Longzhu.
Yeah. Just got to keep, dragging them along, get our ratings in. So it'll be next episode.
We're a big fan of cliffhangers here.
Yeah.
We like to build the suspense.
No, but it's good to see, Maple having such a good performance here, 4-0-3 so far on the Aurelion Sol, because, I mean, he's a really interesting player. He's one of the youngest starting professional players. He's been playing professionally for 3 years. Been to 3 World Championships already, and he's just 19 years old.
Oh, back
Looks
in.
like we're back in, Voice of Light. We'll go right into the action. Fury will get a route in on a double red. Fury able to make his way out alive. Sure, it takes a little bit more damage, but Flash Wolves, they're going to start rotating up towards the top. That's going to be the Abyssal Void coming in straight on top of Expression. Doesn't have a turret. Dashing through the minions.
Here comes the dragon.
Yeah, Karsa's on the chase. Maple coming in as well, but looks like he will be able to dash his way out to safety. But now Flash Wolves, they might just be like, oh, hey, look at this. A tier 2 top turret. Let's go ahead and take that instead.
That was actually a really smart escape from Expression. He's played a lot of this already. What he did was he actually started ulting the wave so he would have a reset on his Q to be able to escape. Managed a double Q, getting away there. So that was actually not completely caught, but really smooth stuff from Expression on a comfortable champ.
And meanwhile, Frozen splitting on the bottom lane. He should be set to break this bottom lane outer tower and start to even up the gold here. We're 20 minutes in. It's a 3K lead. It's not insurmountable at this stage of the game. The Aurelion Sol is terrifying, but if you avoid dealing with him, all that gold, all the money that has been poured into him is just not that relevant.
And so much standing gold for Longzhu to pick up. That's their first turret of the game. 2,000 gold disadvantage. A couple of turrets come in. Suddenly, we pretty much got a line ball game.
Yeah. Well, they're pretty close on that one. I think they've whittled down the top turret just a little bit. Not sure how much the mid has gone down, but I'm surprised that Double Red wasn't able to secure that mid tier 1 tower. Most of Longzhu had rotated up to the top side to defend the tier 2. Double Red is by himself in mid, but wasn't able to take it. It would have been a nice advantage, at least a 1-for-1 tower trade that the Flash Wolves could have made, but instead they lose out on an objective.
And Longzhu's just heads-up play to have these pink walls down has really been their saving grace. Before the last couple, there was actually 4 on the map. Only 2 now is Pure. That's a very early flash, but regardless, wanted to get out to safety. Because they've had really smart defensive pinks, there was no way for Flash was to brute force down that mid lane turret, but Infernal Drake, that's a different thing for Flash. It looks like it's going to be pretty elementary for them to pick that one up.
Yeah, Crash coming around the back of the pit, unless he could steal it, but Karsa will body block that one, and MMD comes in to help secure. So we will see the Infernal going over to Flash Wolves, and the Ocean Drake will be our 3rd element coming out.
Relatively small advantage overall at this stage of the game, however, was looking for a little bit more. Flash Wolves, but Maple.
Yep, Chaos Storm in the Gravity Field put down immediately by Frozen. Abyssal Voyage as well from Sword Art, but not close enough to get on top of him. Frozen pops the Ghost, and he will make it out safely.
Individual mechanics, that's what's carried Longzhu in a lot of games. First, it's Aurelia's daring escape up top, and then only the Ghost required from Frozen to get away from a multi-man collapse from Flash Wolves. It doesn't allow the gold lead to grow for Flash Wolves, allows Longzhu to continue to stabilize. Important that Longzhu isn't allowing the bleeding to cement Flash Wolves' advantage in the mid-game.
But of course, Aurelion Sol continues to apply pressure on the top side of the map, has decent defensive vision as well. Unfortunately, that pink ward from Longzhu not going to spot out the cheeky ward over the wall. So he's comfortable to keep pressure there, but not a whole lot left for Flash Wolves to take after that play. They've lost a lot of minion pressure in the waves, and Longzhu just going to be happy to catch this one up.
Oh, Double Red stepping on that trap. He's going to get devoured immediately by Sword Art. Spits him out of range. They'll just use the rest of those bullets to clear out the wave, but Longzhu's still not going to find much pressure into that tier 1 turret. Looks like it's just going to be standing for a pretty considerable amount of time. We're almost 25 minutes into this game, and they haven't broken all the outer turrets. Still have just the top and the mid standing.
And of course, it's been interesting too because the pace of the game just continued to accelerate for so long in the early minutes. MMD maybe getting a little aggressive here, though. Have to hold on to that
down,
one.
he's got Maple in tow. He's going to be looking for the kill. Doesn't have a tier 2 tower. Asher, nice juke back by Expression. Not going to get stunned up. MMD now trying to turn this fight all around onto him. Has to use the ultimate. It's like Flash Wolf's just going to go ahead and peel back, but Expression, very nice dodge.
It may not be enough for them to win this game, but Expression's solo performance, given how many different targets have been set on him from multiple members, with globals, with roams, great stuff solo from Expression. If he had died a couple of times, like honestly, in any other situation, many players would have. This game would probably be just iced out by the Flash Wolves, but for now, Longzhu still within touching distance, even though Flash Wolves take out that mid lane outer turret and keep trying to grow elite.
Yeah, trying to keep their hopes alive.
I mean, absolutely, of course, Smithy, as you're saying, if Expression had gone down, it would have been 3 losing lanes, no hope left, free wins on team fights, free wins over any objective, and a massively fed Aurelion Sol. But Expression holding on to hope has been so key for them to move forward. And additionally, the luxury of this composition is that with this Victor, once he gets a few items under his belt, it's really easy to stop the bleeding, especially since Flash Wolves made 1 or 2 missteps to stop the snowball from moving forward, allowed him to get those items, and now Frozen pretty content to just clear the waves and stall this game out further.
And even though Longzhu are one of the teams that, once again, haven't had any roster changes coming into this particular tournament, barring just using some of their substitutes, this tournament isn't happening in a vacuum for Longzhu either. This is still a roster with a lot of members fighting for their spot in 2017. The re-signings haven't happened. That contract period hasn't happened yet in Korea. A lot of money spent on Longzhu, not many results. So someone like Expression showing up big does start to cement him just in terms of his hopes of playing on this roster in 2017.
Look at it too. Flash Wolves trying out new things on the roster. They may be content to just, play for the record here, play for the tournament, but it's different when you're playing for a career, when there's that pressure on you. And Expression, maybe despite that pressure, is still playing incredibly well, and we, have to give him respect for that.
Yep, now though, Flash Wolves want to turn up the heat a little bit, get on the Crash. Not going to be able to find the kill, but a big stun comes through, get a little bit more damage in onto the team. Frozen has used that Chaos Storm, but is he going to get a whole lot of damage out for that?
Expression is on the bottom side. Now Maple moves to the top side as well. The split pressure is definitely here. Good patience to back off. They look for the collapse. It doesn't look like they're going to get Aurelia, or are they? They do stop it.
On
nice
the flash
play.
forward, there it is. Gets him with the tongue lash. Expression doesn't have much mana, but look at the damage that he has. Goes straight on the double red, trying to take him out. The volley being fired off. He's way too slow. Dashes back in. Flash away by double red, and he will live in the end. But that was a close one. Expression still showing off his mechanical prowess, almost coming out even in that exchange.
Had to use all his summoners there, double red, so they get the kill, but what more, Flash Wolves? There's no easy objectives on the bottom side of the map. They decided not to just go for a counter push and draw the teleport away from Expression. So you get a kill, you feel a bit better about yourself, but it doesn't really advance the game any further for Flash Wolves.
And of course, as we look forward to, as Baron becomes the center of attention, Flash Wolves have an insane amount of sustained damage, a decent amount of burst, but the potential for Longzhu to find a pick to burst down any individual member of Flash Wolves is very legitimate, very high. They can kill anybody with a single rotation between the Aurelia Equilibrium Strike, between the Nidalee rotation, the Jhin, the Victor, whereas Ashe and Aurelion Sol much more effective in those sustained damage situations as opposed to the upfront burst. So Baron fights feel reasonably in favor of Longzhu if they can find a decent setup.
I mean, they have good, good AoE control with that Chaos Storm. So far, Frozen hasn't been able to do a whole lot with it. Got the Rylai's, though, slow him up in the Baron Pit would be nice. Karsa going to go ahead, flash to the other side of here, kicks him back in, but he's got the Unbreakable. He's going to mitigate a lot of that damage. Karsa now getting rooted by that Deadly Flourish. That's going to be the current call coming through. Sword Art going to be the target. One more shot will take him down, and Frozen's able to find him. Expression in the front lines. He is going to fall. Now MMD coming in on the sideline, snaps it, gets a huge burst of damage on a Purian Crash, and it looks like Flash Wolves might be able to run over Longzhu. Karsa still barely managing to live, picks up the kill onto Frozen, and that is just going to be Fury, the only one left alive, retreating into the jungle by the Dragon Pit. That's a near ace for Flash Wolves, and they are going to take the base.
And the start of the fight looked so good for Longzhu, especially on the backside, taking so much attention. They were able to start cutting through Flash Wolves members. They take off Sword Out to start the fight, but they do not respect the Aurelion Sol, the Ashe, and even the Echo. Yes, Aurelia can 1v1 him, but no one else on the side of Longzhu can, and now Flash Wolves are in absolute control.
Yeah, Aurelia tried to dive, but no dive buddy for the Aurelia. No other frontline tank, especially with the Nidalee jungle, brought purely on the defensive there, so nothing they could do. So
Fury trying to go in for the steal. Basically a Hail Mary from him, but it's going to get cut short. He goes down. Baron picked up by Karsa. The Flash Wolves have everything that they need to go back and break the base of Longzhu.
And we're going to see this fight once more. The Fury actually has QSS here, so he's able to get out of the fight. The insect play doesn't get a lot. And then when you see Fury set up behind Vision there, you thought, okay, maybe this is a fight for Longzhu. But the big issue is that Crash, of course, is getting to the late game, can't pounce in. They turn on Expression. He may have Spirit Visage, but he doesn't have any semblance of armor items. So the moment that the Aurelia goes down, Fury's out of position, and Longzhu's hopes are dashed.
And the moment that they back off is the moment that they lose that fight. And it's not likely that they would have won if they pushed in, but the second you back off like that, you're doomed to fail because they need to kill the back line, and they turn instead to focus on MMD. The second they turn, they are grouped up perfectly for the snapback, for the chrono break on Echo, to get a massive chunk of burst damage on top of the now barreling down Double Red, who, yeah, he may be at a quarter health, but you've used all your mobility to get out, and he is free to just cut through your backline.
Yep, so Flash Wolves have that Baron go back, pick up their third Dragon in the Ocean Drake, get that added little bit of sustain, and we'll see where they want to put their focus. Looks like it might be in the mid lane. Double Red and Sword Art already grouped up. MMD splitting in the top, and Karsa and Maple on their way. And with this Baron, with these minions coming in, they should be able to poke Longzhu off of the turret and maybe finally break the inhibitor line.
And getting any sort of chunk onto Frozen, which might happen right now.
Yep, gets locked up a bit there. Not going to have too much follow-up, though, so they only get a little bit of damage. That is a massive, massive start, but they're not able to land it on anybody for the stun. Karsa going in deep, kicks out Frozen. Can they jump on him in time? Karsa's actually going to go down, but they do get the victor in the end. MMD sitting in the front, has to snap back. That's going to be the transfer onto Maple for the turret. He's eating up the aggro, but it doesn't even matter. He is such a huge dragon at this point. That's 3 members down on the side of Longzhu. Crash and Fury desperately trying to retreat, but the flash forward from Double Red comes up with the double kill. MMD will die to the turret in the end, but Flash Wolves, they ace Longzhu, and I think that they might just be able to end the game right here.
Double Red gets flashy on the back half of that play, picks up a couple extra kills to pad that stat line. 7-0-4 for the rookie 80 carry of Flash Wolves, but it's Maple and Karsa who carried this game and a well-earned win.
Yeah, Maple roaming between the lanes, taking out members, and 6-0-11, 17 out of 19 kill participation, untouched in the last fight, DPSing down everyone, and Flash Wolves are through to the final.
That they are. Nexus crumbles, and Flash Wolves 2-0, a much cleaner game over Longzhu in Game 2 compared to Game 1. A little bit how Longzhu was yesterday when we saw them play, but they will be moving on to the finals, as you said, Papa Smithy, to face off against Unicorns of Love, who have looked pretty strong so far in this tournament, so this should be a very interesting matchup, and the first time that these two teams will ever play against each other, I'm pretty sure.
And I'm really excited. Maple versus Exile. He's already taken down Bjergsen today. It was a rough-fought battle, but he came out on top, and now taking down another world-class mid laner, or trying to take down another world-class mid laner. There's a lot of pressure on this guy today, but the Aurelion Sol, we didn't see it. We didn't see it for so long. We wondered why, and now the question is, does it have to be back on the top tier ban list?
I mean, the story of this tournament was questions, whether it was underperformance at Worlds or new rosters coming through. In the case of Flash Wolves, both, right? They have new players, they went out in group stages, LMS in general underperformed, and now we have a final where literally anything that could happen. A best of 5 between the Unicorns of Love and the Flash Wolves. And Flash Wolves looked good in 2 games. Were they clean? Not necessarily in both games. Are there still question marks about Double Red? Good performance in Game 2.
Sure. Struggled
in Game 1. There's still a lot of questions. We've seen more of Unicorns, and on the whole, I think Unicorns have been more impressive. But because we've only seen 2 games and thus 2 wins from the Flash Wolves, it's pretty hard to call, honestly, between the two.
Yeah, and I think with MMD having an okay performance in this set, that we're likely going to see him moving into the final. I think that putting in Rins would be too much of a risk. Rins also doesn't have that great of a competitive record. He's something like 3-24 in his last games when he was on Team Mist. So it's a pretty damning record. So I think they're going to go ahead, stick with MMD, but we could very well just see Double Red staying on this roster rather than NL.
Absolutely. I think you continue to give Double Red the spotlight, the opportunity to play. Of course, it is the luxury of the best of 5. If things start to fall apart, you have the opportunity, you have the time to mix things up. But really curious, too, is have we seen everything that Unicorns Love have to show? Is this where the weird picks start coming out? Because they, too, have a best of 5.
You've been cussing them a long time there, Sifa. I feel like the bag of tricks never ends with that team. So they've shown some creative things here, but honestly, it's the standard, honestly, that Unicorns of Love look most comfortable in.
Well, one of the things that I have to kind of question is how much have these two teams scrimmed together since they've been here at IEM when they flew in? Because they're on the opposite side of the bracket, so you have to think that they were probably scrimming each other in preparation of their games against TSM, against Longzhu. So they might know a few of the tricks that they have hidden for each other. So it'll be interesting to see how that draft goes and how those games go overall when we get to the finals in a little bit.
Yeah, we can only speculate on a point like that, though. And it's a really intriguing matchup. Could have some long games, but Unicorns, the draft in game 1, I think, against TSM really let them down. The moment they got the draft together, thought they looked like the Unicorns of yesterday in games 2 and 3. So to me, they come in favorites, but we just have so little info specifically about the ceiling of the Flash Wolves. You see Maple and Casa running around killing everyone. You get excited about Flash Wolves.
Well, that you do. But we're going to go ahead and throw over to the stage for an interview with Carsa and Stake. So, Mark, go ahead and take it away.
Well, we are here at the Totino's winner interview here with Carsa from the Flash Wolves. Thank you so much for making the time for the interview. Congratulations on the match. Now, you've talked about family, that your team is like family, and you have a new addition to your family, Double Red. How do you think Double Red did today at this match?
I got it. 就没有什么改变吧，就一直以来就是他也待在我们这边蛮久的了，只是从候补变成正选，然后就感觉没什么变。
He says nothing really changed because Double Red was a sub in our team. He just couldn't play because of the age, and he's been with us for a long time.
Well, we are glad that he came of age because he did an amazing performance today. Now, this is the you played against Crash and Chaser. Talk to us about you. How do you feel about playing against them today?
我说你跟 Crash 还有 Chaser 都打过了，那你对他们有什么想法，或者是今天的比赛有什么感想？
就打过 Bengi 以后，其实就没什么感觉了。
He thinks after playing with Bengi, it doesn't really matter who.
All right, now I hear that you guys sing before your matches and also during your matches. If you guys win today, will you sing if you win with all of us today?
他说他听说我们会在比赛开始前跟比赛中途都会唱歌。那如果你今天比赛结束之后，你会不会在台上唱歌？
Do you guys want to hear him sing if he wins?
我们的上路咪咪就那个 AND 他比较会唱，所以我应该会请他来开嗓。
He says MMD is a better singer, so he'll make MMD sing.
Well, good. Well, we're looking forward to it. Thank you, guys. Congratulations, and back to you guys.
Thank you so much. That was great. We're all going to sing karaoke party the final if the Flash Wolves manage to win, because they have made it to the final and the marked improvement from game 1 to game 2 in terms of keeping the acceleration of the game going and closing it out. It does help if you have a 19,000 Aurelion Sol in Aurelion Sol in your team, because that will be a catalyst.
Well, we did see them take down SKT with Aurelion Sol, and they definitely put in a clinic here in terms of how to utilize this guy to pressure the entire map, and we're going to see it right here. At level 5, a roam to the top side to the point of pressure that Longzhu wanted to have, immediately trying to shut it down.
Yeah, this was really the Maple story right there. It was a good attempt from Expression to flash and try to dodge the orbs, but literally back-to-back. So we've just now ganked top. Maple immediately goes to mid, pushes a wave, and suddenly he's bottom, places the ward. Now MMD's joining the party.
Only one level of difference, and you go for a 5-man gank to the bottom side, and this is where the first brick is going to come down, just putting attention everywhere, and that's the beauty about Aurelion Sol. even in the hands of a very skilled player, he can make plays across the map. And the 3 places being ganked just all over. This is such a great game from Maple
synergy with the
that
top
it
bench as
must
well.
be banned in the finals.
Yeah, and Aurelion Sol did see some nerfs between now and 6.21, you know, trying to nerf out his mid-game. But the thing is, he still exists in such a great spot because of his build. You know, going for, he effectively builds kind of all of these resistances, but he gets so much damage off of it as well as CC since he's building, I like to call it the hose, GLP. Just ridiculous, interrilize, disgusting.
He's just such a good pick for this matchup, especially as a surprise pick. You see him kind of like the cheese guy in a best of 1 where you know, oh, they didn't expect it. But in a best of 3, essentially, when you're 1 game away, it turns into a best of 1. So going for it makes a lot of sense. And I really like what Longzhu did to contrast that, to really focus onto the Aurelia, the lane that was winning. Unfortunately, they were not able to get as much as Aurelion Sol got everywhere else.
And you actually saw that reflected in their vision. So we talk about kind of those gateways or those silk roads into lanes. It usually starts with the Raptor brush or on either side of the map. And Longzhu actually prioritized majority of their vision at controlling the top side. The problem with controlling the top side of the map versus the bottom side, especially early game, is that you're putting all of your eggs and simply snowballing that champion ahead because the objectives early on the top side of the map are just that tower, whereas the objectives on the bottom side of the map are things like the dragon as the tower as well, and snowballing more members because you're dealing with your dual lane. So it makes sense that Flash would prioritize that with the Ash Arrow, but I just think that Longzhu, they needed to kind of change gears away from that Aurelia, especially when Echo started giving her a fight.
It's also so difficult to actually get rewards out of camping a tank in the top side. Somebody like Echo, that is quite difficult to dive. We saw them struggle to actually go for all the dives that they went for, not 100% success rate, and that just is not how it goes for the bottom side. When you have Aurelion Sol and Ash down there, you are going to get guaranteed kills left, right, and center, and you're able to easily get objectives, so your efforts are less and with more reward.
And we did see that Crash was trying to keep up with the speed of Aurelion Sol. Like immediately, as soon as he was done ganking top in the initial dive, he immediately reset his position on the map and started bulking it towards the bottom side of the map. But it was just a little bit too slow because you're dealing with such high mobility.
And a little bit too late as well as the cross map potential. They had the Tom Kench, they had the Aurelion Sol, they have the Ash Arrow, and they have found more openings than they did in game number 1. And I also think this is very interesting going into a best of 5 champion select now, because they have shown a couple of different things. They know that they play the Vars now. They are not afraid to take the Gnar top lane. They have the Aurelion Sol on their back pocket. So that will be very interesting as we see how a best of 5 evolves in terms of picks and bans for the Unicorns of Love to prepare
We'll
for.
absolutely love best of 5s, and the fact that we get the Unicorns that have been playing so standard with the exception of just the Kassadin, and now we have the Flash Wolves coming in with very different priorities in their champion pool makes it quite exciting. This is always a clash of, is our playstyle, is our composition better than yours, and how does it match up against it? Like the Gnar into the Poppy, no Poppy priority. Will they run Kassadin into Aurelion Sol and simply trust that maybe they can account for the roams? Maybe we'll see that.
It's effectively the evolution of the meta. So we already have the tournament meta, you know, Tom Kench kind of being the surprising pick and the support that maybe wasn't quite noticeable on the world stage, but coming out here at IEM, when you get into that best of 5, it's almost like a mini meta takes place. Like Aurelion Sol is now probably going to be a priority, at least considered in those bans. You definitely have to echo what the casters were saying. But so far, most of the tournament has been about the jungle pool, and you now have Karsa versus the likes of Move.
Yeah, it will be a very interesting matchup indeed, and I just want to round it out, of course, the report card for Longzhu coming in here as the 8th place LCK team who put up a competitive game versus the Chiefs and now knocked out. What is kind of your judgment on them and where they can improve?
The report card, I think, is we're sitting at a C. I think a C minus maybe. You know, you passed, but you didn't really.
How much is that out
You're
of
not
10?
going home and showing your parents. You're keeping that one under the bed.
But they're just so like we didn't see it at this tournament, but if this is like the first time that the audience is really seeing Longzhu, if you don't watch much of the LCK, like they do have these performances where they look great and you're like, man, this team has so much potential. If only they had a brain. That's really what it comes down to. They make
You put yourself in that one, by the way.
They make really poor decisions, and they do it as a team, and they do it on an individual level. The fact that consistently Expression is trading his teleport for like single kills, and it's not going into a tower, and then he loses so much CS or he loses so much. Like the fact that Lee Sin was able to push down the tower on himself because Expression teleported bottom, they picked up a kill and they got nothing else. He also did it in the first game where he teleported bottom to kill the Varus, and again, they lost their top lane tower for it. So that's individual decision-making errors on Expression's level, and then the fact that Frozen being that split push victor, like back-to-back, like why is he the only guy that seems to know where they need to be on the map?
Yeah, harsh but fair judgment, I think, judging off the play that we've seen, and we do have to say that same thing for the Flash Wolves as well, because we had the Aurelion Sol in game 2, he absolutely popped off and they did much better, but we do have that inkling of those problems of not being able to accelerate and close out the game like we saw in game 1, up versus the Unicorns, and you guys were saying as we watched the series, well, this should be a done deal for the Unicorns.
I don't think we can go that far. I do think that the Unicorns are coming in as favorites as their games looked a lot better, but the Flash Wolves are mechanically very impressive, and they're also capable of closing games out when they get the ball rolling far ahead enough. We saw it in this game with the Aurelion Sol. It was a very quick lead. Left, right, and center, they understood where to pressure, and it just became that much easier because Longzhu only had one window of opportunity to come back.
I do want to interject there a little bit because we did definitely say that after the first game because of the back and forth game and not being able to close it out, and are we not putting a bit too much on this last game where the Aurelion Sol completely popped off and took over the game?
See, I actually disagree a bit because I agree with that point that we just don't have enough of a sample size to say that Flash Wolves have learned their lesson, especially if you look back to like the history at Worlds. It was consistently a problem. I mean, really the last time that they were able to close was when Stake was on the roster. But the big mismatch that I see for these teams lining up, because you have such talents like Karsa, like Maple there, is actually in the bottom lane. You know, you have that rookie ADC in double red versus Veritas and Hylissang. And Veritas and Hylissang are having an incredible tournament right now. So I definitely think bottom lane is actually a big point of power for Unicorns of Love.
Yeah, it would be very interesting to see. Let's take a look at the updated bracket. As we know almost everything, we still have to crown our winner here, our champion at IEM Oakland. After running through everything, the Unicorns of Love have made it to the grand final up against the Flash Wolves, which will be a best of 5, and we will touch on this a lot more when we come back and set up for the grand final. But if in the beginning of the tournament we talked about teams that had not met their expectations in 2016 for the Flash Wolves and for the Unicorns of Love, this is just a monumental opportunity to show something.
Absolutely. Winning a tournament, a major tournament, is quite important, especially when it comes to international play that we really don't get to see, and just comparing yourself. Even if you don't succeed, the ability for you to play on stage against other regions that is so scarce makes you a much better team. So all the teams that played here will most likely come out ahead just better.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to kind of see the innovation as we go into this best of 5 again. We talk about kind of like the mini metas that can exist. We haven't seen any of the Unicorns of Love's kind of staple tricks. You know, they finally made it to the finals. It is a best of 5 that probably won't happen in game 1. Maybe there's a chance, but I'm still holding on to that hope that there's going to be a surprise pick.
Maybe it's completely gone and they just standard close it out. That would maybe even be a more hopeful sign from the side of the Unicorns of Love.
Yeah, because then it goes back to, you know, changing their identity of style, that they're no longer synonymous with this idea of chaos style, that they can play a very patient, very clean style. And they're not reliant on gimmick picks anymore, that they can just play the standard clean map.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's not sticking to cheese and picks that are just surprising. I think that it's always something that is valuable, something that we're not at a point in League of Legends where you clutch on that. A cheese is just things like Aurelion Sol, which is a very standard pick that everybody should be expecting. So if they are capable of playing surprise picks and win a game off that, all the power to them. And I'm very excited to see if they actually are capable of doing that, if their champion pools are deep enough, because it really doesn't remove any credit away. After all, this is one team against the other, and you're expected to use all the resources that you have to beat your opponent.
And hopefully we will see that all come out in the full 5 games in the best of 5 that's coming up. The Flash Wolves up against the Unicorns of Love in the grand final of IEM Oakland after this.